Good day, everybody. This is the Ecclesiarch here, back with some more FORGECAST, and I'm sure there's quite a few of you who have been waiting for this one, because as always, we keep getting those texts from a couple of very loyal viewers. When's gonna be the next FORGECAST? Come on, let's just send it over. So, well, here it is. We do like to make you guys wait a little bit, but yeah, it's finally here, and I'm here with none other than BJ the Brave. BJ, what's up?
Yeah, we like to. We start. I think we're settling into a bit of a rhythm with it, aren't we? Because at first we tried to be like we're going to do it religiously every kind of 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever we agreed. But now we kind of figured that the podcast is quite good when we've got news, so we kind of use it more around the news. And boy, have we got a lot of things to catch up on Ecclesiarch since we last spoke.
A lot has happened after that. When was the last time? Actually, what was the last thing we discussed?
So episode 16, we were talking about pretty much GSC, I think.
Yeah, Gene Stealers was what we discussed. Yeah, I believe, and a lot of things have come with the Gene Stealers.
Yeah,
and we're gonna discuss a lot of things, guys. That's gonna include some of the drafts, the ladder system, factions, reinforcements. But just to kick things off, because BJ, we haven't really crossed each other on the ladder lately, so I'm gonna have to directly ask you, what have you been playing lately?
Yeah, so so obviously we had the first ladder system, which we'll get onto, and I was pretty much like the last week was kind of weird for me because I was pretty much locked into my 4 factions, but the meta shifted halfway through the season, and I didn't have good picks because I had things like Orcs, for example, which just completely sucked against Scarabs and GSC combo. So it was a kind of, and also I couldn't play much just for personal reasons. So I actually barely played in week 4. So I went from like top 20 end of week 3 to finishing 51st. And the reason I finished 51st is because EG decided to extend the ladder by 24 hours. So I was safely in at 47 at the time that it should have ended. And I couldn't play. I was away in the office. Anyway, yeah. So the new season started, and I've just really enjoyed it. I think that the balance patch has kind of altered the meta enough so that it feels like a really viable meta to me at the minute. Like many decks. If you think about it, there were 16 warlords that were between the 50 and 60% win rate in their things. That's pretty awesome. So I think that's gone up since the balance patch now. I think there's probably over 20 that are really viable. So I've been learning. What I did is I've actually focused on decks that I didn't play last season. So I've been learning on VAR again, which literally I haven't played Tau for so long. It felt like relearning the faction, and Slither, my teammate in the alliance, has been really great. He's doing good with on VAR, so he's kind of like coached me a little bit. And then I've finally decided to jump into Junith because it's the one sister that I've just never ever done. I didn't have one video on my channel. I've just released my first Junith Sisters Battle Guide yesterday, and I'd never played Junith. And I've decided that, look, she's the meta one. I've got to learn her properly. So I jumped in, and I've got to say, I've been absolutely loving Junith, like absolutely loving it. So I kind of had a deck that was an old one, which I kind of refined. Then we had a session where Shrigma Mail, who has posted an amazing score already with Sisters, he kind of took me through his deck, which was really different from the one that I had. And then I've been talking to, I think his game name is Your Wife, who's currently second on the Sisters leaderboard, who has a completely different one again. And we're all playing Junith. And it was so cool. I was like, oh my God. So really getting into these conversations about, well, what do you think about this card? And why have you got this one over this one? And getting into like the detail. And I'm like, oh, okay. So much is like clicking for me now with that deck. And I'm really, really enjoying Junith. And then finally, I dabbled a little bit with Necron. So we kind of, I really do love the Implacable Conqueror, and I'm so determined to make that card work with Necrons. So I kind of did a little bit of dabbling. I put 100 points on my Necrons. But then I actually switched to GSC because I don't know about you, Ecclesiarch, but I'm really enjoying the GSC faction from a fun, like what it feels like to play that faction is an awful lot of fun. Now, the problem last season, of course, was that everyone was playing the combo deck, and it was a little bit, I wouldn't say it was as bad as Scarabs, but it was a little bit one of those decks, right? It was a bit like you love it, you hate it, it's a binary thing. So what I'm playing now, and what people are starting to figure out, is a Magus deck, which is more centered around. I'm not going to call it a sabotage deck because I don't believe it is. The one I've been playing doesn't run, for example, the Underground Network, the 4E stratagem. So it's not like the heavy sabotage deck. It's actually more of a tempo deck. So it's much more about really playing for like early game units. Like, for example, say you use Magus's power to choose one of 3 cards. What I was doing before is going, oh look, this really cool legendary that would cost me 6E is there, and I can get it for 5E, and I'd pick that. Whereas what you do with this deck is you go, oh look, there's the thingy. I'm so bad with the names. What's the 2-drop that just basically like a 1/3 and it puts a sabotage card in?
Saboteur, I think, actually.
Yeah, one of the 2-drops, but it could be any 2-drop to be honest. So you pick a 2-drop, and suddenly that costs you 1, or you pick the 1-drop that the 1-drop that gives flank to stuff, and that's now costing you 0. So say you take a 2-drop, for example, and then you've already in your hand you've got the 2-drop flanker. You've now on turn 3, you play the flank followed by the 1-drop. You just played 2 2-drops, one of which has got flank on E3. That is a super powerful tempo turn.
Absolutely.
And I have been absolutely smashing ladder with that deck. The only thing I will say, and so was Shrigma and so was Slither, the only thing I will say about it is, and I've got the deck guide coming out on that very, very soon. The only thing I would say about that deck is it's definitely like a thinking deck. Like every turn you're sitting there going, oh my god, there's like 4 different options here. And then you're obviously having to calculate what might you draw from Magus and things like that. And are you better off? You end up with these little combos and you're like, am I better off going off next turn or should I go off now? So these are the types of decks that I love. It's one of the reasons why I like Orcs. It's like, give me loads of options. Give me a deck where when I lose, I go, that was your fault, DJ. You picked the wrong choice. Not, oh, Necrons, Scarabs went off and did their thing and you just lost because you had no chance. There was nothing you could do, right? So, so GSC, I'm so glad that I found a deck that is powerful and isn't the pure combo. There's still lessons from the combo deck that you can integrate into that deck. The Icon Bearer, the 3-drop Icon Bearer was so good. There's so many players around that bloody thing, and then getting out the attention is. People are going to hate me doing that soundbite on the thing.
Someone's going to cut it out and meme it. Trust me.
Oh, they already have. I don't know if
happened,
you saw,
right?
I don't know if you saw in the GSC channel. Yeah, it was quite funny. Someone.
BJ,
So it was. It was just me on repeat.
Oh, okay, now you cut off for a second, but yeah. I think I actually saw that a while ago, so I kind of flew out of my head.
Yeah, no, it was funny. So yeah, I mean, really, really enjoying that, and now I'm just waiting for the new Necrons, which we're going to talk about today. And because what I've done this season is I've kind of done Abaddon. I've got Abaddon, Gene Stealers, and Abaddon, Gene Stealers. What's the 4th? Oh, and Sisters, yeah, up to like 3K already. And now my 4th one, it's like I've got Tau, which are at like 2,750. I've got Necrons at 2,600, but I'm kind of deliberately leaving the 4th one a little bit because I'm not sure. I want to see how the new cards work. If I can make Necrons work, right, then it'd be fun to play them because it's the new cards and do that as the 4th faction. So I'm kind of leaving that one open. But yeah, how about yourself? Well, I know you've been playing other things, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But in terms of Warpforge, what's your last 2 to 3 weeks been like?
Oh, I'll tell you, I have some very weird picks chosen for this season, but I think some things will change after the reinforcements. But let me tell you what I've been up to. So, BJ, basically, here's the interesting thing. Just as you said, I have been like a little bit weird in terms of what I'm supposed to play because of the whole meta switch in between. One character that I definitely have been playing ever since the GSC came out was Magus, mostly on like pure control based build, but ever since like some little things changed here and there, I see that a lot of people have been integrating neophytes in there, which I myself have not been doing actually. So that's a thing. I'm eager to try that out. But in general, I have been enjoying the control-based Magus a lot. He can really he's pretty interesting, as you mentioned. You got to do a lot of thinking. You got to also decide how to use your flanks, what to get from your ability, because it's not always get the biggest unit, right? Sometimes you want the cheap units. So that's one of my favorite decks right now, because overall I think they nailed the GSC in terms of being fun. Apart
it's
from,
fun, isn't it?
It's really, really fun. It's really cool. Apart from the Rampart infestation thing that was going on, it's pretty fun. I don't know how much of an issue it is still. I haven't really played that much, but we'll see about that later. But overall, I think they did GSC quite well. That's one. As for my number two, I have been trying to build a very good aggro Morvenval deck. I'm still working on it, but she's actually a little bit slept on, because well, I don't know about how she's going to be now, but ever since like the GSC and the Scarab thing was going on in Junith, she was actually quite all right, because the sheer amount of AoE that she can dish out and the damage was catastrophic. I mean, she did have a problem though. Her problem mostly being that, the typical sister problem. You either draw your faith or you don't, and Morvenval is by far the worst when it comes to gathering faith. So the deck that I had built, some of you guys might have seen the video, I tried to get to 4 faith and no more. So that's like kind of like my cap. I just want 4 faith and we're good. So yeah, it's just pretty interesting. Number 3, actually, before it was Keltalk. But now that like the whole Scarab and GSC thing is toning down a little bit, as well as the whole Orc menace, I'm starting to play Neurothrope again, because I do find him to be, for me personally, the most fun Tyranid Warlord, because I really love the whole Norn Emissary builds, or not even the Norn Emissary builds, the control type of build with Neurothrope is just too fun for me. So that's what I'm going to be pushing.
If you're going to do control, try Harpy, dude. Harpy is really surprised me in practice. It's been really good. like it's a nightmare for your opponent to get rid of it. And so because even if they try to get rid of it and they attack it, they probably need to attack it with like 2 things. I mean, obviously, if they got hard remove, they got hard remove. But if they attack it with like 2 or 3 things, it's like you've just got 3 spores. And I see opponents panic like mad with it. They go, oh shit! After they've done it, then they attack the spore to kill it, and then the Harpy goes have another spore.
Yeah, it's slept on.
It's a fun card. It's a good card.
It's actually slept on. It's quite a dangerous card. I don't know like how powerful it is, but it's definitely slept on, because currently I have lost matches to that. So especially in draft, like Harpy's nuts. I like when we'll talk about the draft a little bit more later, but when I was playing that draft with Swarmlord, sometimes Harpy was just an auto win. People just resigned when I drop it. So it's like, it's a thing. And finally, the biggest surprise probably for a lot of people would be that right now, and I think he is going to be one of my most played Warlords, unless Necrons... I actually think Necrons are going to take a place in my list, maybe instead of GSC, because I've loved playing Nemesaur as well. I played a lot of Nemesaur last season, and now that he's going to get a lot of support, it's going to be pretty interesting. But right now it's Khal, my number 4, and Khal is actually surprisingly good. Now a lot of people are going to say that, come on, Teach, that's bullshit, and I would have said the same a few days ago, but... today I started playing him, my Ultramarines were down at 2,300, I think, because I was like experimenting. And now I built an aggro Khal, and it's mowing, like it's doing really well. And I think one of the main things you really need to go do there is you got to adapt a little bit to what has happened, which means that maybe you don't want to run the Chaplain, because instead of the Chaplain right now I'm running Sergeant Alectius, which I think is a card that people sleep on, really.
Yeah, it's a good card.
Because, like, if you drop that and the enemy Warlord is blind, yikes, because 5 damage is a lot. Yeah. And on top of that, I've actually removed Impulsors from that deck. I'm no longer running them. And double Calcius is always really, really good. So, yeah, he's been doing quite well. It's not, like, something that's, like, as powerful as it used to be, but it still works, because a lot of times you just get rolling so hard that... people just cannot react. That's why I also run double Octavio and double Scout, because, just the early game menace, and he's doing pretty well, and I really want to try to push the Ultramarines. Now, guys, don't get the wrong idea. I'm not saying that Ultramarines are in a good spot. They are not. They definitely need some love. What I am, however, saying is that Khal can work. He can do some stuff.
The thing is as well, like I think aggro is in a good spot, and that's why I think what you're saying does resonate, because I mean I lost a game with Sisters, which I think Junith is like, if it's not tier, it was tier 1. If it might have just moved into tier 2, I don't know, but it's right up there. It's a really good deck. It actually struggles against aggro. I think Calgar aggro would be an issue for that deck, because in those early games, in those early turns, people are letting Sisters prey, and they're unanswering the Battle Sister and all this sort of stuff. It's like Calgar aggro is not going to do that. You're gonna be removing those things instantly, and I'm gonna then have to attack to remove your stuff, which means I'm not praying and building faith. So basically, you can just overrun Sisters Junith before she gets going into a kind of grindy match. You've already won the game. So yeah, I can see that. I could see that working. That's pretty interesting. You should do a guide, because people keep asking me, hey, can you please? Everyone's got these Ultramarine collections. They can't do anything with it at the minute. So
yeah, I think my next video is definitely Calgar. Well, it depends on how he squares up once the Necrons drop. But then again, people are not gonna have Necrons for a few days, so Calgar can still be in a thing. We'll discuss Necrons in a little detail later. My whole Ultramarine experimentation, actually, the reason I started playing them this season started from Titus, because once Titus became available for the legendary wild card, I had one left over, and I instantly crafted him, and I've been playing him. He definitely... I first tried the big marine build with Titus, because I was thinking with that 3 attack you could hold out and then drop the big marines, but didn't work as well as the aggro. I think he's pretty good in terms of aggro, because his ability to give you +1 damage, armor, and heal 1... you can literally end up out-trading something like Gordrang or Swarmlord with that at the end of the day, because that healing plus armor is just nuts. And he's got the blast. Overall, it's a good package of a Warlord, but I just think that when it comes to that aggro, still Calgar just outperforms him a little bit, because the whole thing is the ability to constantly keep getting cards is just too good. And when you're playing aggro, one of the biggest minuses of aggro is lack of card draw. But the way you could actually counteract that with Titus is you could include Gather the Company, the new card, new changed card, because at 5 energy, if you play Gather the Company, and if you draw like 3, yeah, there he is. If you draw like 3 units, you can get 3 energy. That means you can still play an Inceptor or something like that. So it's actually pretty good. It's actually
so this
pretty
went
good.
down from 6 to 5, didn't it? So draw 3 cards for every 1 infantry, refill 1. Yeah.
One issue that I have with this...
You trigger Codex because it's refill. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, you could do double refill and double Codex, and you also can play something for 3. The only issue really I have with Gather the Company is if you want to be playing this, you want to omit tactics from your deck as much as possible, because then it's like a very slow card. But then it kind of becomes a little bit problematic, because UM do have some very good tactics that they do need to include in their decks. So,
okay.
Or maybe you could play it with Varro, just thin your tactic deck for a little bit and then play Gather the Company. There are some interesting things you could do with that card, I think.
It's really interesting. I've not tried it yet, but now you say that about the refill, that does make a lot of sense. So yeah, let's talk about Titus then. So about 2 weeks ago now, 10 days ago, we got news, somewhat almost hurried, it felt, from EG. Obviously, they were trying to tie in with the Space Marine 2 new video game that came out, and they released a special one-off card into the game, Lieutenant Titus for the Ultramarines, and it also came with a special event, which I think was our first Alliances-based event, which my Alliance came second on, so we got a shiny little badge for that. And basically, a whole new, essentially, format of draft came out, which you can kind of lay out in a minute. But we got Lieutenant Titus. So let's talk about Titus first, and then we'll talk about the draft and talk about Space Marine 2 a bit. So Titus is a 35 health legendary card, and he does cost 2 energy for his exemplary warrior. Now, when you spend the 2 energy, you immediately heal yourself by 1, right? And then you get to choose an effect that costs 0. One of those is when he's on the board by himself, often you'll choose Righteous Fury, right? And this one gives +1 melee and armor this turn. And then the other one is that you play, if you've got troops on the board, you'll often play this one because it'll give them +1/+1 to their attacks. And that, I believe, is permanent, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so that's a permanent buff, which is really nice. And then the last one is if your opponent, if it's hiding things or maybe he's in stealth mode or he's gone wide, you can obviously gain Blast 2. So what do you think to this guy then? And how have you? I've got to be honest, I haven't used him much. I did a couple of drafts with him, but I haven't used him too much. But he seems like the Swiss Army knife, doesn't he?
Yeah, in a sense, that's what he is. He's got some very interesting things that he can do. Like, I had so many cases where somebody drops a Death Leaper and I just play that plus the Sergeant and I get lucky and the Death Leaper is just gone. So he's got some pretty interesting things, and one of the main things that shine is, of course, that he is yet another Warlord that's a better Zaxstruck because of that ability. You really do love crapping on Zaxstruck, I think. But yeah, jokes aside, on paper he's actually pretty interesting, but that's exactly what you said. He seems to have like a very good piece of versatility, but it's very hard to really grasp what exactly he's supposed to do. Like, is he as control one? Is he aggro? Is he like late game? So what exactly is this guy doing, right? So like when you look at Varro Tigurius, you can instantly get that he's pretty good at, like, for example, either a burn or a vehicle deck because he can draw the battlefield supremacy. Calgar is good aggro because he can keep drawing resources. He can also play Big Marine. Ventris is aggro.
Control as well, because he can draw resources, yeah.
Absolutely. Letharius can also be pretty good aggro, but this guy is like, as you said, he seems to be like jack of all trades, but not excelling at anything. So it's pretty interesting, like, what you could do. I guess one of his big uses is that he's pretty good against the Scarabs. But then again, I still prefer Uriel against the Scarabs because Uriel can take out 4 Scarabs while this guy can take out 3. So that's a huge deal.
He definitely feels more like... Well, first of all, he's quite a good addition because, like, as the factions grow and cards come out and stuff, like, you're always going to want to check your deck with this guy in it because, like, you're going to say, well, what does Titus add? I don't think he's a control warlord. He's only got 35 health, unlike Calgar. Yeah. And he doesn't really... I mean, yeah, he's got Blast, but I don't really see him having control tools. In order to benefit from... the Paragon of Ultramar that gives +1 to adjacent troops, obviously you're going to need to be able to get 2 troops down. So he kind of seems to me like a tempo type of warlord, right? Like he can face bash with the shield, or he can kind of bolster his unit. So you kind of almost need to go low and wide. So I feel like a more aggro-y tempo type of warlord with 35 health as well, as we said. So that's what I'm guessing, but I don't think I think he's very sort of like reasonable. Like, there's nothing OP about him, but he's not crap. He's not like a Zagstroke. He's very just reasonable, and it'll be interesting to see what people come up with, especially when the faction gets a bit of a buff, because it's, let's be honest, the faction's hurting at the minute, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the only reason why Titus might not be working for you guys right now, I think, is that the faction is in a weak spot. Calgar is only crawling out because he's Calgar, like 40 HP, card draw. He's just pretty good. But, like, as soon as Ultramarines maybe receive a little bit of a buff, he's going to be good. Plus, I actually think, I would like to say that I think the Ultramarines are being taken into the correct direction, as long as EG doesn't live him like that and actually give them some buffs. Because I, for one, wasn't a big fan of the energy refill because it's very toxic, okay? Now it's much more interesting with 1 energy, because you actually have to time it, you have to plan around it. You cannot just do, like, drop a copter and then do 2 refills and just annihilate a board, right? So, but you have to understand that by you doing this, the faction was hit very hard, especially considering a lot of other things were also nerfed. So as soon as they receive some little adjustments to just get them back in the game, I think they'll be a pretty reasonable and nice faction overall. Interesting. I've said it many times, they remind me of Sons of Horus from Horus Heresy Legions. Very similar, the Warlords are very similar, so the thing is that Sons of Horus have been very similar to these guys. They always had, like, these very good tools, very nice tools, good early game, mid game, late game, but if you gave them a little bit of a buff, suddenly they were overpowered. If you gave them a nerf, suddenly they were useless. So it's a faction you have to be inherently careful with because they can get out of hand very quickly. But I think we're gonna get there. I think we're gonna get to a good spot.
Cool. Well, I've not personally played too much but I'm looking forward to trying him in the future for sure. And so what about the draft then? Obviously, we had this draft event, and it was basically Tyranids or Ultramarines that you got to pick. You could go in at different levels. You could do the free one. You could do the 5 Blackstone, or they added a special 10x one that cost, was it 45 Blackstone?
50.
50 Blackstone. Okay, well, this is great. I had about 390 Blackstone going into this, so something to spend all that Blackstone on. And if you did the 10x one, you got to obviously choose. Well, I think Titus was in all of the 10x ones. Was he in the 5 one, the Blackstone one? I think he was, wasn't he?
I think he was always in every single one. You could pick him in every one. I
don't think he was in the free one, but I definitely was in the 5 and the 50, right? Because they gave everybody the Titus code, so you promo code Titus, you could get 5 free Blackstone.
I see.
I think so
sure.
you could try Titus. I think that's what that was about. Anyway, you basically meant you picked a swarm, you picked a side, right? Tyranids or Ultramarines, and then you built your thing. The big difference, obviously, being the 10x one, meant that you got a lot bigger rewards. So, what was your? I had 4 drafts, I think, but tell me about what you thought to that as an event, and kind of like how did you approach it, and what did you think was good about it?
Well, I'll tell you the pros and cons of it. Obviously, I approached it by dumping all of my Blackstone in there, getting like tons of legendaries, 40,000 gems, like crazy stuff, honestly. I farmed the hell out of that event, mostly because it was a very familiar thing to me. This is like I don't know if you remember, BJ, on one of our first podcasts, was episode 3 or 4, we talked about how draft could have become more interesting, and I did tell you how exactly it was done in HHL. Now, this was a textbook copy of that. That's how we usually have it there. There's 2 factions battling. You can choose warlords from each, and but the difference was, the only thing that was not here is that for each faction victory you got a different reward. Here you just got Titus. Like, for example, let's say, otherwise you would have Titus if the Ultramarines won, and let's say a Hive Tyrant if, like, the Tyranids won, right? So it was very similar. And just like HHL, when you win, you get all resources back. Well, in this case, you get 40 back instead of 50, so you still lose a little bit. In HHL, you get the full package back, which I think, as a limited time event, is a very interesting thing. The positive sides are that this really addresses the issue of drafts being like way too long, because a lot of players were complaining we need the 10x because I cannot sit around play for 10 hours just to do 10 runs, right? So why can't I do this? On one hand, that is very good. On the other hand, the negative side is that actually I'll say that as the last thing because I want to know your opinion on it as well. I think one of the negative things about the draft was that they actually strayed from their tradition. So let me tell you what the tradition was. When you had this draft, the lodges, the alliances got the rankings, right? I believe top 10 was the one. Top 10 alliances would automatically receive the draft reward in their crate. So all top 10 players, alliance players, would receive a Titus. So that was like the thing in HHL. And I'm not sure why they decided not to do that here, because a lot of people were disappointed by that reward, saying that, we reached the top 10 and we got 1,000 crystals and the badge. So a lot of people were actually expecting it to be the same. I think that's understandable, because you actually have something to battle for. Like, that if we get top 10, we're receiving this new legendary card. The whole alliance receives a copy, right? So it's actually something to fight for. So yeah. I think for future reference, EG should definitely include that, because I think it's really cool. It's an incentive, because now with the current reward, people are going to be like, okay, why bother? Like, what am I getting? Okay, yeah. Sure, I'm cool. I got top 10, but what did I get for it, right? So I think that was one of the cons. And let me tell you the final bit of it, BJ, and you tell me what you think. So as you know, in draft, what we do is we roll. You get choice from 3 sets of 3 cards, and you keep building your deck. In HHL, it's exactly the same. However, in HHL, you also have an option to reroll. So you can spend crystals, you can reroll. Then if you want to reroll again, it's even more crystals. So let's say at first it's 50 crystals, then it's 200, then it's 400. So if we each reroll on the same side, it gets expensive and expensive. So a lot of players have voiced that they want a reroll feature because sometimes you just get very unlucky with your roll. Sometimes you just get crap, good, crap. That has a positive side. If you can reroll it, that's good. But the negative side technically could be that a player who has been playing a lot right now I have 20,000 gems, right? And I can reroll as much as I want. But then a new player who has, let's say, 500, he cannot reroll. So I get an inherent advantage over that player. So I don't know. Positives and negatives. Let's weigh it. What do you think, BJ? Should they be allowed to reroll?
I don't know.
It's a hard one, right?
The thing is, like, I don't know what your experience was, but mine was that in that event that's just gone, Swarmlord dominated. Swarmlord was absolutely like everyone I was speaking to was like, if they drew Swarmlord, they got 12-win draft, and I went 12-0, and it wasn't even it wasn't even close. It was so easy, and I don't know. I sort of feel like it's a bit of a weird one, right? Because it was almost like when you saw your Warlords, you were almost just like, right, please give me Swarmlord. If you got him, great. If you didn't, but then if you mean like as in being able to re-roll the choice there.
We could never re-roll Warlords. We could re-roll the cards. Yeah.
Oh, the cards themselves. I see. I mean, maybe you should have do you have like a limited number of re-rolls? So when they show you 10 sets of 3, do you have like 2 re-rolls you can use or something? Maybe that would work.
Maybe that could be pretty good. I mean, the way
I don't know about re-rolling every single time, because I think if they show you a set of 3 and you can re-roll, I think that might be too much. But if you had almost like you've got 3 lives and it's like, oh, do I use a re-roll now or don't I? That could be quite cool. I quite like that. Yeah, that'd be cool. It's like a middle ground, isn't it?
Yeah. You get a reroll, but somebody can't abuse it if he has too much resources over you. So that's good. As for the Warlord that you mentioned, BJ, about the Swarmlord, since you mentioned my experience, I'll just tell you in one sentence. Back in HHL, that was a constant problem. There was always a Warlord that was just better than the others. I remember I got like 50,000 gems in HHL, which was a crazy amount because there was Corswain of the Dark Angels, and I just spammed Corswain, and there you go. So
yeah, it's going to happen, I guess. But overall, I thought the event was really good. I thought it wasn't something I would go into massively excited about. That's just more because I'm not a massive draft player. But actually, I think it was great. I mean, having the 10x rewards thing was fantastic. I thought having the kind of the battle between 2 factions and seeing the kind of winometer swaying and things like that, I thought was cool. I thought the fact that your alliance could all rally around it and it was a team-based event. I take your point about the award rewards maybe, but I thought that was cool. The only thing that is a bit of a con is, so you take someone like me, I've got almost 400 Blackstone, I've got a full collection pretty much, and so I'm getting these 10x rewards because I can invest in the 50 Blackstone events. And I get all these rewards, loads of legendaries. And I'm like, I don't really need them. I mean, yeah, it's nice for your collection and upgrading cards. But then you've got teammates where I almost wish I could give my teammate my rewards. I mean, I would love that. I mean, the whole point of the alliance, it's not a bad idea. Like, if they could come up with that in a CCG, that would be a really cool feature, because the point of the alliance is all about helping your team and all that sort of stuff. Imagine, I mean, I can't even gift someone a pack. Like, I should be able to buy you a pack in game, I think, if I wanted to. But imagine I could actually gift you rewards. I think that would be
technically, VJ. Technically, there are ways that is kind of implemented in HHL, and I definitely see that coming to Warpforge. There is a mentor system. So let's say, BJ, you're the clan lord, right, or alliance lord, and some guy who's new just joins your alliance. He can choose you as his mentor, and while he is you're mentoring him until he receives achieve certain milestones, you are allowed to give him crystals and stuff like that. So it's not a lot.
Oh,
It's not a lot, but it's a good boost for somebody who's just starting. And
100%.
then like combine that if they decide to give larger like alliance rewards, just like the end of the month. Like for example, you beat the draft, you're number 5, so you get a legendary card. Not only you, but your whole lodge gets a legendary card, right? So by grinding and actually pushing your alliance, now all 20 or 25 members of your alliance have Titus. That's a big boost because that's a legendary card, right? So I think what they need to do, I totally agree with you. I don't know like how much EG would agree to allow you to buy things for others, but they, I'm sure, will definitely implement you sending some resources to them,
something,
right?
yeah, send in some resource. I don't know whether I haven't thought about it too long, so yeah, maybe it would go too far. I mean, I'm sure some of those, when I went 12-0 with Swarmlord, I'm sure I got something like 8 legendary cards or something. And I was thinking, God, I'd love to be able to give those to one of my teammates who's like, maybe they've only collected one faction, for example. And it's like, oh, here's a load of legendary cards that you don't have. Whereas for me, they were like second copies, basically. I don't know. But anyway, overall, I thought it was a cool event. Yeah, really well done. I would welcome more draft events like that. And I think people got quite energized around it. And it was also cool to spend the Blackstone as well. So anyway, the whole reason they did this, right, was because the Space Marine 2 game came out. And God, I don't. When did the original Space Marine come out? It feels like it was years ago.
It was years ago, BJ. It's very old.
Yeah, it was. I can remember it coming out, and I remember playing Gears of War. I don't know if you ever played Gears, but it's kind of like based on the gameplay is very similar to Gears of War. And as a 40k, I think I was working at Games Workshop when that came out. I can't remember, but anyway, it's what you obviously got the sequel, so you've actually played it. I've only watched reviews so far and stuff. What's it like?
Oh man, that's like peak. I love the game. And I'm quite and trust me guys, whoever's listening, this is coming from a guy who's a bit whiny because I don't like the Primaris, I don't like some of the news story. I'm one of those guys who keeps whining. So basically I'm one of those guys, but it's really good. Okay, it's really good. Like the whole atmosphere is amazing, the graphics, the combat is amazing, missions are super, the boss fights are like, that's one of the things that actually differentiated from Space Marine 1. You get actual challenging boss fights. Like you're scratching the Dark Souls level when it comes to boss fights, and it's really, really interesting. Well, you know, not as difficult obviously because patterns are easier, but still it's pretty damn good. No spoilers in the chat. The only thing that I will like tell you, the only thing I kind of dislike about this Space Marine 2, there's like just one thing I kind of don't like, and spoiler alert, it would be nice if 140k game would not do the "it was chaos all along" trope. Okay, like I'm kind of getting tired. But bonus points for not using Black Legion again. So that's something. But other than that, the game is just really, really good. You can customize your armor. You can paint it for online for any chapter you want. It's founding chapters and then like
cool.
sub chapters and so on. And you know, like I got a pretty cool Dark Angels customization right now. It's pretty cool. So overall it's really nice. There's also PvP, but I don't play much of PvP. I'm more of the co-op type of guy in these types of games, and we had a stream yesterday with some other YouTubers like Gothic Avatar and Unta. You guys probably know both are HHL YouTubers, and Unta is a Warpforge YouTuber as well. We got smacked, we got crushed and destroyed and sent home by the Tyranids, but towards the end we actually did some cool stuff. So was that co-op mode? It was co-op mode, and we got absolutely crushed by the Tyranids. Like first 1 hour we were just getting crushed, but afterwards we kind of, you know, got a hang of it. Also, we lowered the difficulty a little bit, so that was also a thing. But actually, that's the fun part. I mean, I'm a beginner. I'm not really good at that game, but it's actually interesting how different is the low difficulty and medium difficulty. As soon as you hit the medium difficulty, the game goes from quite easy to quite challenging. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Plus, if anybody is like a Warhammer 40k fan in general and plays Warpforge, you're gonna see some of your favorite units. You're gonna be, oh my god, that's a Lictor, and that's a Neurothrope. Oh my god! Like I had legit people telling me when I was battling the Neurothrope, it was like, oh my god, it's my favorite Warlord. So like, you know, it's pretty cool. Overall, it's a game that I would definitely recommend you guys grab if anybody's a 40k fan. I'd say it's one of the best ones that have come out recently. So yeah, for sure.
Nice.
Really, really good.
Nice. Yeah, I watched a couple of the streams. So if you've not seen that, go and check out Ecclesiarch's channel. Yeah, obviously, I imagine we can expect in Warpforge more tie-ins, right? So it's probably worth keeping an eye on the 40k schedule and understanding what's coming out, because there's every chance that we end up. We had the Skulls event as well, didn't we? We've done this, so there's every chance that we'll get some more.
Quick
stuff.
question, BJ. I just like saw some news. I skipped over it kind of, but did the Eldar actually receive a kill team or combat patrol? They received something lately, right?
Oh, I don't know actually. I'm not actually sure.
Because if they did, the Eldar are finally gonna have some breath of fresh air in Warpforge.
Oh man, can you imagine? There's going to be some celebrations when Eldar gets some love. It's just,
I know, right?
It's been painful, but they're doing well in terms of the meta report. God, they were, I think, the best performing faction somehow last season. So there we go. Anyway. We're going to talk all about that. We're going to have a little chat about what the first season of the new ranked ladder, what we thought about the ladder. We've already talked about like what we played and stuff, but just what we think of the new system. And then we're going to get stuck into some juicy conversation about the new Necron reinforcements, which are which are out now. They're out now. We've got the raid has literally just launched as we're recording this. So I can actually share my screen and we can get some talk about the new cards. So we will see you over on my channel, BJ the Brave on YouTube, and we'll see you over there in 2 seconds.